This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network. Today on the James Altucher Show.
My happiness and my quality of life is much more important than cashing out some money on a business. I didn't care anymore. I wanted to be happy again.
But, most people wouldn't have the confidence to say, okay, I'm also going to do something I never did before, which is travel around the world. And at the same time, I'll be able to make a living.
Americans don't understand how insanely expensive it is to live in the U.S. I did the math on this.
I'm kind of depressed listening to this. So why, give me another excuse. Why don't people do this? I mean, I'm getting ready to, I feel like packing myself right now. So what if you could completely throw out all of your possessions and go completely off the grid, travel around? Let's find out how to do it, who did it, how you can do it no matter what your position in life is, no matter how much money you have, how you can get started. This is the ultimate digital nomad minimalist, Bobby Casey. Welcome to the show.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me.
So, Bobby, I remember reading.
Appreciate the time. Yep.
I remember reading once when you decided you were sick of it all. This was like a whole bunch of years ago. You threw everything out. You sold your home, and you and your wife picked up and just started traveling around the world with no home and no goal in mind or anything.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of a long backstory. I won't give you all of it now, but basically around 2007, I kind of realized that I was sick of my business. And I hate to say it, but whatever. I hated my customers. I hated my employees. I hated my job. I hated my business.
I get it. Customers are hard. People don't realize with entrepreneurship, it's not, in general, you're not like hanging out with your friends. Like customers are hard, right. Partners are hard, like everything's difficult in a business.
Well, I came to a point. I said around 2007. I said I'm tired of this crap. Really, I'm ready to do something different. I traveled the world a bit at that point, just like visiting places, but never like living as a local. And so I sold my business and went through a whole long process selling the house, the cars. I had a motorhome. My God, James, I had 27 motorcycles.
You had 27 motorcycles?
I had 27 motorcycles. It was kind of funny. Like, I started thinking, I probably ought to sell my motorcycles. And somebody asked me, how many motorcycles do you have? I'm like, I don't know. I'm guessing like 12, 15. And I walked out into my garage and like pulled the covers off of a bunch of them and counted them. And I was like, holy cow, I've got 27. How did this happen?
So wait, how much did you clear from selling all the motorcycles?
Honestly, I don't know. But at the end, I could tell you this. I don't remember. I sold ridiculous amounts. But at the end, like when I was ready to just like close the doors and throw away the key, I gave away, I think, 5 or 6 motorcycles. I just had buddies. I'm like, hey, do you like that one?
Huh.
Yeah, just come get it. You can have it, man. I had one of my buddies.
I wish I knew you then.
Sort of friend. I had one of my buddies he's kind of sort of a friend who said, how about I buy that thing from you on a payment plan? I'm like, dude, just come get it. He goes, I'll pay you over, a year. And he made one payment, never paid me again. But I'm like, whatever. I had to get rid of it anyway. Whatever.
So you sold all these things. Most people would think when they get sick of running a business, oh no, I have to get a job. What made you think you can sell all your belongings and go on the road forever? Like, weren't you scared that eventually you'd run out of money and you'd come back and you were out of the job market for all these years and you'd be lost?
Well, I've never had the mentality to get a job to begin with. I haven't had a job since I was 19. So, I've always hustled, self-employed, solopreneur, investor, something or other. I don't know. For me, the mindset is never, I need money. Let me go ask somebody else to pay me money for something. in a job setting. I've always just worked for myself in some way or another.
So when you sold the business, though, did you sell it for? And this was right before the financial crisis. Did you sell it for enough that you could travel all around, or was it just sort of kind of to get you started?
Oh no. It was more of a fire sale.
But you had confidence in yourself.
I had confidence in myself. I got some money out of it. I cashed out some money, but if I would have sold 2 years earlier, it would have been, a heck of a lot more money. And I was already doing some consulting in my field. I do now. I was doing some consulting with some friends and some other people I knew that were entrepreneurs. And so I had a little bit of money from investments. I sold the business, but honestly, I'm telling you, I was at the point I told you before. I hated my customers. I hated my employees. I reached the point where I said, I don't care if I sell this thing or not. If I have to, I'm just going to go lock the door and walk away, because my happiness and my quality of life is much more important than cashing out some money on a business. I didn't care anymore. I wanted to be happy again.
But most people wouldn't have the confidence to say, okay, not only am I going to shut the door and throw away the key, but I'm also going to do something I never did before, which is have no home and kind of just travel around the world. And at the same time, I'll be able to make a living, make enough money to pay the bills, particularly when the financial crisis was just beginning and probably, was hard to make money. Where do you find that confidence?
I don't know. Maybe I'm let's say overly confident. Maybe I don't know. maybe I'm overly confident or arrogant in a way, but I just knew I would work it out. I would make some money. I mean, I bought a one-way plane ticket to actually it's kind of a funny story, but my oldest son, who now is 17, but at the time was I believe 9.
How many kids did you have?
I have 3 kids. I have now, my daughter is 20. She's a rapper living in London. And my 2 boys are 17 and 9. But at the time, my oldest son, who was 9, him and I got a one-way ticket to Prague. And this was in 2009. And we decided to move to Estonia. I had met a friend of mine who had lived in Estonia. And they said, it's a cool place. You'll like it. I speak some Russian. I thought, that'll be cool to live in Eastern Europe. I can practice speaking Russian. So at the time, my wife, my daughter, and my youngest had a one-way ticket to Estonia. And my oldest son, we bought a one-way ticket to Prague, or I bought a one-way ticket for us to Prague. We went and we just backpacked around. I didn't even know how from Prague we were going to get to Estonia. We took a train down to Brno in Czech Republic, went to a motorcycle race, MotoGP race. Then we took a train up to Warsaw, spent a few days there. We took a bus from there to, where was it? Vilnius in Lithuania. Spent a few days. We ended up in Riga, which is where I live now, or where my home base is, let's say. And then we just kind of took a couple weeks, worked our way up. But essentially, we moved on a one-way journey to Estonia we'd never been there. We'd never.
And ever since then, you've basically lived all over the world, right?
Yeah, I've lived there, Estonia. I've lived in Latvia. I've lived in where else? Italy, Panama, Colombia, Belize. I got it. I can't remember.
And you've traveled all over in between as well. It's not like you buy a house and move all your furniture to Belize. You just kind of go from country to country.
Yeah, James, I travel with a carry-on and a small backpack. That's it. I mean, even when I moved to Estonia, I moved with a carry-on and a small backpack.
So this brings to mind 100 different questions. So let me, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna ask you questions and then we'll see where it goes.
Let's do it.
So
okay.
Financial crisis. You had just started out, and the reason I ask about this is anybody can take off and say, I'll do some consulting, but when the shit hits the fan, so to speak, it's hard to make money. So what did you do for money? Let's say from 2008 to 2010, when pockets were tight, wallets were tight.
Well, I had some investments, not enough to live on for sure, but I had some investments. I got into, well, when the markets crashed, I started trading options also. I mean, let's see, 2000. My God, my memory's not so good. When the market crashed, and it was 2008, right?
Yeah, 2008, 2009. October? Yeah.
Yeah, when the market crashed in 2008, I can't say I foresaw it. I just thought, it was getting a little bit risky. So I put all my money in treasury bonds, all my investment money in treasury bonds. And of course, what happened when the market crashed to treasury bonds? They took off. So I was like, wow, I was in the most boring investment ever, and it took off. So that did fairly well. Once the market crashed, I saw craziness in the market, like Goldman Sachs selling for $50 a share. I mean, what was it? Bank of America went to $1 a share, stuff like that. So I started selling naked puts at the time on like some really big, well-known, like blue chip companies. I was just selling naked puts, and 3 and 6 month expiration, and I basically, they never got put to me, or most of it. I mean, obviously some did, but for the most part, I managed my risk pretty well. Most of it didn't get put to me, so I made money buying and selling options during that time. I did some consulting.
What kind of consulting?
But I do asset protection and business consulting, business structure consulting on how to structure your small business, like where you register your company, how you can minimize taxes and minimize risk and stuff like that. I mean, that's basically what I still do now.
And so your kids, what were they doing? Like you took 3 kids out of school. How most people would say, oh, well, I have to wait till my kids graduate school. What were you doing about them?
I put them in local school, put them in Estonia. We put them in local Estonian school. It's kind of funny. I was literally, my son and I were walking through the center square in a city called Tartu. Tartu in Estonia. It's the second biggest city there, which is not saying much. It's still a small town in U.S. terms. But walking through the square, and this woman overheard me and my son speaking English. And she said, oh, you guys are American. I said, yeah, you're American too, I guess. She goes, yeah. She said, do you live here? I said, yeah. We just moved here like a couple days ago. She said, what are you doing for your kids, like in school? I said, I have no idea. She said, well, I have a son that's the same age as your son here. She said, we found this really good school up the hill. Tartu's got some hills around the center of the city. She said, there's a meeting tonight at the school for, foreigners who want to put their kid in the school. I said, okay, cool. So I think my view is you figure it out as you go. I mean, like I said, maybe that's an arrogant response, but I mean, we literally just moved there. I didn't even have a place. I hadn't even looked at the property market to see if I was going to rent a house or an apartment or whatever. My son and I just showed up, and I found a couple of real estate agents to show some apartments. And I ended up we looked at apartments for like a week, couldn't find anything we liked. We stayed in a hotel. And I found an apartment for us to rent the day my wife and the other 2 kids showed up. We literally checked into the new apartment I had rented, dropped our bags, and took a taxi to the airport to pick them up. We didn't even unpack our bags before they got there.
So when you move though from country to country, do you pull all the kids out of the one local school and then go into the other? Does that affect them socially? Like, do they say, Dad, I was just making friends. Now you're moving me to the other side of the world? Or what do they say?
Well, we moved to Latvia. After Estonia, we actually moved back to the States for a brief period because I still had some stuff. Before we moved to Estonia, I had sold a bunch of my stuff, but not everything. And we still had a house and a couple of cars and some stuff. We moved back for a few months from Estonia to the U.S. and said, okay, we got to get rid of everything. This is crazy. There's no reason to have a house and all this other stuff here. So we moved back to the U.S. That was when I felt like I had an eBay and a Craigslist job for a while. I mean, I was literally just taking pictures of stuff in the garage, putting it on eBay. I mean, I was spending a few hours a day doing eBay and Craigslist stuff. Because like I said, at one point I had 27 motorcycles, 5 cars, a motorhome.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I had all kinds of stuff.
But
moved back to the States and got rid of everything. Yeah.
And then your kids, do they, again, when they go from country to country, are they in different schools in each country, or how did you kind of educate them all the way through?
So what we did at that point, of course, back in the States, they just went back to the U.S. school for a little while. We moved to Latvia, and they all just went to Latvian school at that point. And then my daughter, her last 2 years of high school, that's when she really got into music. So she was writing music and performing and she was actually doing some small events. And so she actually did an online, like an online school for expat kids. It's, what's it called? I forget the name of it now. IVLA, International Virtual Learning Academy. Yeah. IVLA. I think it's ivla.org maybe. But there's a bunch of online schools for that. But she did that, and then my 2 boys were in local school. So.
And was she able to make friends also, though? Like, because part of school, I imagine, growing up is the social aspect.
Yeah, no, she had no problem making friends. I mean, that's her personality type. So, and I think that is an interesting point, because my oldest son, he's much more introverted than my daughter, and so he needs the kind of a forced environment for social activity. Whereas my daughter, she would find it. I mean, if she lived in the middle of the woods, she'd have friends in a day.
But when you were like in Belize or Anguilla or wherever, how did your boy, was he based mostly in Latvia then, or what did you do?
Well, yeah. So my wife and I actually split up about 3.5 years ago. So most of my extra travels or extra places I've lived have been in the past 3.5 years.
And if you don't mind my asking, did you guys split up in part because of the lifestyle was getting difficult, or did the lifestyle affect the relationship?
No, it didn't. I don't want to get into the personal reasons on my divorce, but I can tell you without a doubt the lifestyle itself really had no bearing on the demise, let's say, of the relationship. So ultimately we just grew apart.
So some people would also say, look, it's easy for this guy to say he sold like 27 motorcycles or whatever. He had some money. I probably can't just pick up and travel around the world and make ends meet. What would you say to someone like that?
Honestly, I think I mentioned to you before, I've heard a couple of different reasons, excuses, rationales, whatever you want to call it, behind why not to do it. Now, like, for example, like you said, well, I can't travel. I can't go live in a foreign country because of my kids. My kids, I'll do it after my kids graduate high school. Or I can't do it because I don't have the money to do it, or something like that. Honestly, I think those are all excuses people make to justify their own current choices. People say, well, I can't move abroad because of my kids. Well, my view was, I want my kids to experience the world, experience different cultures and different languages. So my view is, I need to do it because of my kids. I need my kids to have,
right,
this different experience. I want them to see more than just a very small geographic area where they go to high school and they, go bowling on the weekends or something like that. I need them to experience more. So I kind of framed it a little bit different. Not that I can't do it because of my kids, is I need to do it because of my kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and look at your daughter as like a global citizen, being a rapper in London now.
Yeah, well, my kids are actually dual citizens also, because on their mom's side they had Italian ancestry, and through some of my connections we were able to reclaim their Italian citizenship. So all my kids are now dual citizens, which probably wouldn't have happened if we hadn't taken this lifestyle, because I wouldn't have met the person who could help facilitate that. My daughter wouldn't be living in London now, all these things.
Okay. So one of the excuses might be, well, I need to make my salary and pay my mortgage and make ends meet and so on.
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting one too. And I get this a lot. I have a lot of digital nomad clients, and I have a lot of clients who want to be digital nomads. And the money issue, of course, it's a real situation. I mean, we all want to live indoors and eat, right? I mean, we have some, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have our own needs we have to do. But what people don't understand is how, at least if we're talking about Americans, and we could talk about some other, developed countries as well, but if you're talking about Americans don't understand how insanely expensive it is to live in the U.S. I did the math on this, and it's funny, I just went to lunch with an old friend of mine yesterday, and we discussed healthcare costs. I estimate I save $15,000 a year by not living in the U.S. just in healthcare costs. Just in healthcare. Is that because
what would have cost you $15,000 this past year?
Well, for one, I would, as an American living in the U.S., under the Affordable Care Act, you have to be insured or you have to pay the penalty, right? And I'm 42. I'm in good health, but I would estimate I'd pay $600-700 a month at least, maybe $800 a month for health insurance, for decent health insurance. You could get it cheaper, I guess, but it would be terrible health insurance. And then if you go to the doctor a couple of times, you have co-pays and all that stuff. So you go to the dentist a couple of times, you go for a checkup once or twice. I estimate that would cost me $12 to $15,000 if I lived in the States. Living where I do, I don't have health insurance in the U.S. I don't need it. I pay for catastrophic health insurance in Latvia because as a resident, I'm a legal resident in Latvia. My health insurance cost in Latvia, you won't believe this, but I pay $42 a year for a 10,000 euro deductible plan. A year.
And catastrophic $42. For if you're hit by a car, catastrophic, you're confident the insurance company would take care of you?
Anything over 10,000 euros. I pay up to 10,000 euros. Anything over 10,000 is covered. Anything, including if I wanted to be airlifted to Johns Hopkins in the U.S., it would cover 100% of my airlifting back to Johns Hopkins.
And what is,
for example, if that's what I wanted.
What does catastrophic health insurance cost?
I pay $42 a year.
Oh, I see. So that's total. That's all in.
For a year, $42. It's 38 euros, which is about $42 a year. And beyond that, if I go to the dentist, it costs me 20 euros for, a checkup and a cleaning. I had a root canal about a year or so ago. It cost me 300 euros. In the U.S., it costs $1,500 now to get a root canal?
At least, yeah.
A couple of years ago, I had a chest infection and I was too sick to leave the house. I called my doctor. She came to my house and brought with her 2 rounds of antibiotics, did the checkup at house with 2 rounds of antibiotics. Total was 80 euros.
Wow.
Total. Like $90.
So right? So someone who's making 100,000 in the US, now you've got them down to 85,000. Let's bring them lower.
Okay. Well, also if you, and I'm talking to Americans here, I'm sure the majority of your audience is probably American, so we'll focus on that. You have what's called the foreign earned income exclusion. If you qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, and basically if you live abroad, I don't want to get into the details on how to qualify for it, but we can go through that process if you want. It's a little more complicated, but if you qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, your first $100,000 you don't pay tax on, and then you get a housing allowance depending on where you live. And it averages around $50,000 a year. So you can make about $150,000 tax-free as an American living abroad.
So So that's amazing. So you
So
basically, oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, so if you're an American, you make $100,000 a year. I'm saying gross, like your gross paycheck's 100. You're probably netting. What do you think? 60,
Yeah, 60
depending on where
tops.
you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with 60. So right off the bat, you have an equivalent. You need to earn an equivalent income abroad of 60 to have the same living in the U.S. as 100. That's one thing. Then you have the healthcare costs. You can knock 10 or 15 off from that because of the difference in the cost. And then when you consider cost of living, there's a website called Numbeo. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. numbeo.com. You can do a cost of living comparison between cities on Numbeo. But if you compare, I don't know, let's use Budapest, Hungary, for example. If you compare Budapest, Hungary to, let's say, New York City, the cost of living in Budapest is probably, I'm going to guess, 50% or even less than that of New York.
I would guess even
So
less. But okay, so now
it might be less, yeah.
now you just took me from we've worked our way from 100,000 to 22,500 because you know
Approximately, yeah.
So,
to have an equivalent quality of life, yeah.
right. So basically, you could go to Budapest if you have skills that translate over, you know, a mobile platform like consulting or website design or Photoshop design or writing or whatever. Instead of making 100,000, you could live, you know, in any of these, probably many different countries for less than $25,000 is essentially what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah, and Budapest is just one example. You know, I could rattle off a bunch of places. You don't like Eastern Europe? You know, try Lisbon, Portugal. In the south, nice weather year round. Ridiculously low cost of living in Lisbon. You know, or Malaga, Spain, is also a very low cost of living place to live, right on the coast of the Mediterranean.
What about what are some good places in South America?
My all-time favorite place in South America is Medellin.
That's what I keep hearing. Is that's the new place, and it's all Americans there now, apparently.
If you're in the Poblado area of town, yeah. I mean, you and I have a good mutual friend who's been living down in Medellin for a couple of years. I'm sure you probably know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's one of the ones a couple of years ago that convinced me to come check out Medellin, and I love it. Last year I spent I don't know, a month and a half or close to 2 months in Medellin.
So major city, what's it cost to get, let's say, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment rent per month?
Well, our mutual friend has a ridiculous apartment. It's a 3-level penthouse apartment with a rooftop jacuzzi in one of the nicest buildings in the city, in the nicest part of town. He's got underground parking garage, a gym in his building, a pool, and he pays, I think he told me he pays $1,800 US a month. But that apartment is like,
oh my God,
that's something you might see Will Smith in Miami, though. Like, that's, his apartment's crazy. I love his place. But like a normal 2-bedroom place, you can easily find $300-400, $500 a month.
So I mean, you can't even compare that to New York City. There's nothing. There's no comparison. That's like a fraction of what New York City would cost.
You couldn't get a broom closet in New York for $500 a month.
I'm kind of depressed listening to this. So why? Give me another excuse. Why don't people do this? I mean, I'm getting ready to. I feel like packing myself right now.
Well, honestly, Medellin is an excellent place. I would highly advise it. I think the reason people don't do it is fear of the unknown. I mean, why don't we do anything? Why do people stay in the same job for 10, 15, 20 years? It's fear of the unknown, right? Lack of confidence, maybe. Fear of, not being able to provide or.
Oh, Bobby, I think I just lost you. Bobby? Are you still there? Should I hang up and call him? Let's stop to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Bobby, I think we lost you. So just start with fear of the unknown.
Okay. Yeah. So most people have a lot of fear of the unknown, right? They get in this zone, right? You go to college, you get out of school, you get a job, and you kind of follow the Joneses path, right? You get a job, you're making good money, you go get a house with a mortgage, cars with a car payment, and they don't have this understanding that, hey, maybe I can do this. Like, it's not even, it just looks like something cool that they see on the internet or some cool picture on Instagram or something. And a lot of times it's who we associate with, right? I'm sure, James, you've heard you are the average of your 5
Right.
closest friends you associate with, right? Like, and that generally goes your income level, your net worth, your religious views, your political views, your hobbies, so on and so forth. You spend time with the people that are most closely, you know, in agreement with your views. And so when you see or hear about some guy who has done all these crazy things, who lives in Southeast Asia, different countries 2 months at a time, you think, oh, that sounds nice. I would never be able to do that because I have a mortgage and car payments, and that sort of thing. So I think it's really just a lot of times fear of the unknown. And, sometimes, of course, it's just not what people want. Like, I've got a good friend of mine that lives in Scottsdale, Arizona. His name is Steve. He owns a golf course there and a bunch of apartment complexes. And he's a very successful businessman, brilliant guy. But he doesn't even like to go to Vegas or California. Like, for him, to get outside of a 10-mile radius from his house is like beyond the scope of what he wants to do in his life. So,
Right. So,
it depends on the person.
but that's a really great point, though, about being the average of the 5 people around you, because let's say you develop this traveling or digital nomad lifestyle, you're going to also learn the skills from the people around you if you associate with the right people. Like, for instance, in the course of your travels, how do you see people make the transition from making a living at a job in the U.S. to kind of, taking their skills overseas and making a living? Like, how do they do it? What do you see people do to earn that $25,000 or $50,000 a year, whatever they need to make?
Yeah, I see. I have a ton of clients that are digital nomads now. They're actually my biggest client base at this point for what I do. So I talk to a ton of these nomad guys every day, and I've seen all range of things. Like, I have one client who, she just quit her job. She had a good paying job, saved up some money over a few years, and quit her job and said, look, I'm going to give it a shot for 6 months and see how it goes. Well, during the 6 months, she started doing some freelance work, and she's good at this and good at that. And
What
and all
type
of a sudden,
what type of freelance work? Like, what were her inroads?
Graphic design, website design, helping people set up their WordPress sites, stuff like that. It's not big money, but like we said, the equivalent, if you're living in some low, like Hungary or Portugal or Colombia or Vietnam or something, you can make 25 grand a year and have the equivalent of $100,000 US source income. And so you go help somebody build one WordPress site for a few hours and you charge them $600, $700, $800. I mean, that's 2 weeks worth of lifestyle income, right?
Right. And also, I should mention, like, specifically WordPress setups and things like that. You could learn that there's 100 different websites. You could learn that for free over the course of, let's say, a few weeks or a month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's the Udemy, Udemy. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
Udemy.
Udemy, Code Academy, Linda.
Yeah, I think even Khan Academy has some free courses on website design and WordPress sites.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Khan Academy, my oldest son does Khan Academy courses sometimes. But, I mean, it's not that hard. Like, this person does, some graphic design work, some website design. And I think what will happen is she'll eventually find some product niche or some service niche and build a business out of it. But for now, she's just doing freelance stuff.
What are other things you see people do?
Amazon, selling products on Amazon. That is the biggest thing I see right now. People just building Amazon businesses, or building, let's call it, I say Amazon businesses. They're e-commerce, but Amazon's the biggest platform in the world for e-commerce right now. So, I say it's like you can't avoid, if you're selling a product online, avoiding Amazon is kind of like selling your product from a yard sale in your front yard when the biggest flea market in the world is across the street. You just don't avoid the biggest marketplace.
What's an example of what somebody sells on Amazon? What do they sell there?
I've got one client who's selling these glassware, like wine glasses, beer mugs. These he has them custom designed, and then he has them manufactured in China. Sells them on Amazon. I haven't talked to him in a few months, but last time I checked, he was gross revenue around $80,000 a month, netting about 30% of that. I've got another friend who just sells vitamins.
How does he advertise the glassware on Amazon? Like, how do people know to find him?
He puts the product on Amazon, and Amazon has a pay-per-click, just like Google pay-per-click, but in Amazon you can have pay-per-click ads within the Amazon platform where you pay for higher placement on certain keywords. So if in his case he's selling, let's say, wine glasses, for example, he might pay an ad budget to get the wine glasses keyword on Amazon when people search there.
Okay.
And it's also SEO. You have to use SEO, keyword heavy in your advertisements and that sort of thing. And it's like building any other business. You have to find your products. You have to sell a good product. You have to provide a good service. You have to reach the target audience. People like I got a friend of mine who sells ghillie suits. I don't know if you know what a ghillie suit is.
No.
You ever seen these suits like people go play paintball in, and they have the camouflage suits with the strings hanging off?
Oh,
of
yeah.
them?
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a military application, but now people use it for paintball and hunting and everything. He sells ghillie suits. Years ago, he had e-commerce sites selling these ghillie suits online, but now 75% of his sales come from Amazon. But he manages his client base. He's been doing this for a few years. He has his list of clients. He has e-commerce sites that are normal e-commerce sites, but most people buy on Amazon now. 75% of his audience goes to Amazon. Just like building any other business, you have to get your product in front of the right audience. You have a business, you're just using Amazon as your platform. But most people I know that sell on Amazon are on multiple platforms. They have a Shopify site, they have an Amazon site. Maybe they're selling on Walmart.com.
But you think living the mobile lifestyle is what kind of encourages them? Hey, I can build products cheaper here and then sell them in the U.S. on like Amazon.
Well, I have one friend of mine who sells supplements online. He actually has all of his supplements made in the U.S. He's not having them done in China. He wanted a higher level of quality control on the ingredients and everything. So he actually has private labeled his products from a U.S. manufacturer.
I would think that's a very competitive. I would think that's a very competitive area. Like it seems like everybody would sell.
Is.
So he probably did a lot for advertising.
I'm telling you, he only started the supplement business less than 2 years ago, and he's doing close to $100,000 a month.
Wow! And what's he netting?
About 35%.
Wow! So that's great. And what do his supplements do? Like how did he design his vitamins?
He has all kinds of crazy ones, like feminine hygiene supplements, let's say. Some are for, he doesn't have, it's not like just vitamin, it's not just like multivitamins. They're all very specific ones. You know, you've got some, I mean, like one of his biggest sellers is a yeast infection product. So
that's interesting. So, and what do you think his initial? I know this is a little off track. But what do you think his initial outlay was to get this before he was like netting that kind of money? Before he was netting anything?
Oh, I know exactly what it was. He's a good friend of mine and a client too. He made money in his first month. I mean, his net profit in his first month was already a couple $1,000s.
Wow. So it's interesting. So there's many things basically people can do in this mobile sort of nomadic world that we live in now because of all these different platforms, whether it's Amazon or Airbnb or, you know, whatever. And, you know, there's essentially all what other excuse have you heard for people not doing this? I mean, I guess my excuse would be my kids because I'm divorced and my kids live with their mom. And so I need to see them every couple, you know, as much as possible. And it would be hard for me to travel all around, I think.
Well, you and I are in the same situation. I see my kids every month.
Right. So, and you do that in Latvia?
No, my kids live in North Carolina with their mom.
Okay, because they
two younger ones.
I see, because the youngest moved back.
Yeah, they live in North Carolina with their mom. I see my kids every month. And generally, what I do is I will come like my next trip. I'll go the last week of February and the first week of March. I'll see my kids in February. The last week of February, I'll have them, and the first week of March, I'll have them. We do all kinds of stuff, you know. I mean, we do the normal stuff too. I take them to school, and we do all that normal stuff. But you know, then we do all kinds of stuff together. I work from wherever I'm sitting with my laptop and my phone. But usually I tie that into other trips. Like right now I'm in the US. I'm heading back in a few days back to Latvia. I'll be in Latvia for a couple weeks. Then I'm going to Tbilisi, Georgia for a couple of weeks.
What are you doing there?
Then I got some, looking at some business stuff. I've got a lawyer that I do some work with there. So I've got some meetings.
Okay. That sounds
real estate projects, stuff like that.
What do you mean you have like a lawyer in Georgia you're looking at some stuff with? That sounds almost like KGB-ish.
Well, so Georgia is a really good market for investment right now because it's real estate prices are very cheap. Like you can buy in Tbilisi, the capital city, Tbilisi, you can buy apartments in the center city for, you know, like you're looking at $800 per square meter, which is ridiculously cheap. So I'm going to look at some properties. You know, I have a lot of clients that always look for investing opportunities. And I have found in my experience, a lot of times, if you find the right lawyer to connect to in that area, they can open up doors for other things.
Like what?
I'm generally investment opportunities and connections with partners for different business opportunities. Like we're looking, I've got a couple of clients that are actually going with me. One of them is looking to do some import-export business of some Georgian food products. So we're going to meet with some suppliers. That's one of the things we're doing. We're looking at real estate. There's a resort project that's being built there. You can go in as an investor. And then the other thing is this is a topic we haven't really hit on, but there's an opportunity in Georgia for people that are going there to invest some money there to become permanent residents and citizens of Georgia, and then they can get a second passport there. So that's part of the reason we're going there as well.
And why do they want to do that?
Why would you want to get, well, if you're a nomad, for example, now we're getting back into the foreign earned income exclusion, but to qualify for as a nomad, let's say you want to live as an expat or a nomad and you want to qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, there's two ways to do it. One, you need to be physically out of the U.S. 330 days in a 12-month period. The other way to qualify, though, is if you become a bona fide resident in that country. You actually become a legal resident in that country, and you have some connection to that country. You can become a bona fide resident in that country. And then, let's say you're an American and you get residency in Georgia, and you are now qualified under the foreign earned income exclusion as a bona fide resident. You can actually physically be in the U.S. about 120 days a year. So it actually allows you more flexibility in traveling back to the U.S. on a time basis, if that makes sense. So you're a legal resident in Georgia. When I say legal resident, you're claiming that as your tax home. And then the good thing, Georgia doesn't tax your foreign income. So if you don't earn any income in Georgia, you don't pay any tax there, but you still get the tax benefit of being an expat or a nomad American with the foreign earned income exclusion.
So Bobby,
that makes sense?
Yes, it totally makes sense. And Bobby, it sounds like obviously you're incredibly savvy with all the details and all these different countries and all these different rules and regulations and how to make money in these different places. How do people find you on the internet if they want to get in touch with you?
I mean, the easiest way to reach us is through our website, globalwealthprotection.com. That's our main website. We got a few other specific product pages, but that's our main site. That's where all our articles are. That's where our blog is. If you want to subscribe to our free newsletter, that's where you would do that. So globalwealthprotection.com. There's a contact form on there that'll reach me.
All right. Well, Bobby Casey, this has been fascinating. You've really, people might not know this, but we had a little audio glitch in the middle, and we had to take a break for a few seconds. And the audio engineer, he's almost ready to pack and go on the road now after hearing you talk.
Well, I tell you, there's a lot of good places to go. I have a lot of my entrepreneurial friends who I've pushed over the edge to take the leap. And I had a really good friend of mine a couple of years ago. I sat with him by his pool, and he was telling me, he said, you finally convinced me. I'm gonna go travel a bit and experience, some different parts of the world. I've never left the US, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I said, yeah, what are you gonna do? He said, I'm gonna go live in Thailand for a month, and then I'm gonna go live in Bali for a month. I said, okay, what are you gonna do after that? He said, well, I'm just gonna move back here. He was in Arizona at the time. He said, I'm just going to move back here. I said, oh yeah? He goes, yeah, Bali for a month, Thailand for a month, I'll move back here. I said, no, you won't. He goes, yeah, no, I will. I said, I'll bet you money right now that you will never move back to Arizona. It's been 2 years. He hasn't even been back to visit yet.
Oh my gosh. Where is he right now?
I just talked to him this morning. He's in Vietnam.
Oh my God. All right. Well,
and he's going to be in Latvia in a week. He's going to come visit me for when I get back. He's going to come stay with me for a week or two. And
how's he making a living abroad?
Amazon.
Interesting. What's he selling?
He did have a pet product he was selling. He actually sold that business, cashed out a little bit of money, and now he is selling I don't know exactly which product, but it's I call it man products. They're like shaving stuff and, things that men buy. He has a man store, let's call it.
That's funny.
But he has a bunch of products on there now.
All right. Well, Bobby Casey, globalwealthprotection.com. Thanks so much for sharing all this expertise and getting me thinking about it as well. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yep, sure. No worries. I will make one plug. You can cut this out if you want, but I had sent that report over to you guys, how to go off the grid without leaving your couch. Might be interested for your audience that have access to that. And I'm gonna do a follow-up report that adds the offshore component, so we can get that out here in the next week or two if you want.
That'll be great. No, it's okay. Sorry, Bobby.
No worries.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I'll make the email intro again. I'll do the re-intro to the editor, and we'll get that all hooked up.
Yeah, perfect.
And I think what I might do is I might actually even package this tightly with that and then re-release it later as well. So get the most possible interest. So, all right.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Bobby, and stop by next time you're in New York. Let me know, and we'll try to get together again.
Yeah, will do. I'm usually in New York at least every couple of months. Usually, one of my flights at some point ends up going through New York for a couple of days anyway. So.
Okay, great. Well, let me know when you're in town. We'll get together.
Yep. Plus, my girlfriend is bugging me to go spend a few days in New York. So at some point, I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah. Well, New York is a great city. So once it's warm here, it's a good idea.
Yep. Right on. Will do.
Okay.
I'll be in touch.
Thanks, Bobby. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, James. Take care. Cheers.
For more from James, check out the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network at jamesaltucher.com and get yourself on the free insiders list today.
Listen, I have a big favor to ask you, and it'll only take 30 seconds or less. If you like this podcast, please let me know. Please let the team I work with know. Please let my guests know. And you can do this easily by going to either iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you download podcasts and subscribe. It'll probably be the biggest favor you could do for me right now, and it's really simple. For instance, go to iTunes, search for The James Altucher Show, and click subscribe. Like I said, it will take 30 seconds or less, and if you subscribe now, it will help me a huge amount. Thanks.